Welcome to a Brave Botanical Gardens. My name is Emmanuel. I'm your tour guide for today. So we are starting right away from here. So the gardens was established by the British colonialists, that is 1890, led by Sir William Bamford Jeffers. And the main purpose to establish the garden is to preserve all the trees. So over here we have 160 acres of land, but we are able to develop only 30 acres of land. So the garden itself is 131 years old. This is the old building built by the British colonialists before the gardens was established, that is 1890. Okay, and this building have been here 146 years ago. Before the gardens was established, they have to get a place where they use part of it as their offices, part of it as their clinic. So this is one of the sanatorium built by the British colonialists, that is 1875. So over here there is another tree that is called the tree nut. Tree nut have a pod. You can eat it raw, and also you can use it to prepare the peanut soup. Yeah, so it's origin from India. The Indian people call it money plant, but it doesn't produce any money. And so when we turn to our right side, there is a very huge tree here, go by the name the monkey pod tree. The tree naturally produces a pod. So the one that is not ripe is not open. The one that is ripe is open. So when it's ripe, you have a cover. The fruit cover, the cover will open, and the seed will start falling down. You can pick them and eat them. So when you turn it upside down, put your topsoil, you can plant any plant of your choice. So this is the monkey pod tree, origin from Brazil. Yeah. So yeah, you can see a lot of pods on the top of the tree. botanical name of cocoa is called Tobroma cacao, and the common name is cocoa. Ghana and Ivory Coast, we are leading producing of cocoa. Cocoa was brought by our great-grandfather, that is called Mr. Tetekwashi. So you can eat it raw, and when you eat it raw, you dry the seed. It's the seed that they use to produce the cocoa product like the chocolate and other cocoa products as well.
The community that we've come today is called Asin Manso. Asin means, it's a tree word, which means people that are just passing through. So research has it the majority of us that formed this community were some of the captives who managed to escape. But because we didn't know how to return to where we were captured, we formed part of this community. This particular site played a pivotal role during the trade. It was seen as a slave market, but not just a slave market, but the biggest of the slave market in the Gold Coast, now called Ghana. Many historians have made documentations on Asin Manso. Our historian, a great historian who works for UNESCO, in the person of Akosia Adoma Pebi, documented it in his book, Indigenous Slavery in Ghana, from the 16th century to the 19th century. Our very own Professor J.E. Akwanda also said same in his book, The Transatlantic Slave Trade, Landmark, Legacies and Expectation. And one British historian in the person of W.E. Ward, in his book entitled The Short History of Ghana. All these historians made the claim that indeed Asin Manso in here was the biggest slave market during the transatlantic slave trade in the Gold Coast.
It really puts in perspective what our ancestors went through, the journey that they took. I learned so much more about what actually happened here in Ghana on their way to the dungeons, and things that I never heard before, but to actually make that trail and trying to keep up with one that was in front of me, and you couldn't. But we were at the liberty to be able to stop and, put our hands down, but they didn't have that. They were drugged, they were chained together, and it was just so brutal. How can you do that to another human being? But anyway, it also made me realize that I am part of one of those who were strong enough to survive the brutality of what they had experienced.
I don't have the eyes. I don't see in the spirit realms. I don't know what our ancestors are doing now. So we just ask the permission for them to allow us to come in. So that wherever they are, they should come together and listen to what we brought on board. So that is why I know.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble.
This experience has been like one of the best trips of my life so far, and it's like, there was a lot to do. It was probably the Slave River, being able to walk through there barefoot and getting a idea of a piece of an idea of what it was like, walking through there and everything. And I just can't imagine, how difficult it was, going through, the woods and the water and everything to reach that destination.
I came from the USA, which is California. I reside in Sacramento. I am here in Ghana, Africa, and we went to a couple of places. We went to the Cape Coast Dungeon, and that probably was very emotional for me when we went through the dungeons and seeing the DNA that we were standing on from our ancestors. So that was very emotional for me. Also, as other people in the group are being interviewed, some of their words are very touching, so it did cause like a breakdown for myself, because we are here to experience the things that we were told that we were bad people, and we're seeing that we are very brilliant people, and the stories that has been told to us is incorrect.
You see little glimpses of this in Roots, but the most profound thing that hit me was when I looked out into the ocean from a contextual standpoint. I realized at the beginning of my existence as a so-called African American began in processing plants like this. So when I started there, I said, well, this was not about racism, because in America they branded it as racism. This was about money. It was about cheap labor. It was about how can I get the most profit from the human beings and their skills and their talent and their resourcefulness, all of that. And I said, well, what's different today? I was made to think that we were the only ones who went through the ocean. So in America, we went through trauma, we went through it. But then when I came, I learned, I said, well, they had more in Brazil. And 5 million went to Brazil. And really, the amount that made it to America was like maybe 1 million. So I said, well, wait a minute, I'm not the only person who went through this. I'm not the only person who went through the trauma. I'm not the only person. So that's when I went to Brazil. And that's when when I say Ghana opened up the door to the rest of the continent, I went to Togo, Benin next, then I went to Brazil. And I said, this story that we've been taught in America is so incomplete. And there's something that kept messing with me is the fact that every time I went to one of these dungeons, there was a church in the middle or on top. In Elmina, you'll find a church right in the middle. And I said, something about this isn't right. So I said, I need to go to Ethiopia. I said, because in Ethiopia, they're supposed to have some of the original Orthodox churches. I said, so I need to go dig a little bit deeper. But remember, in America, if you think back to the context of our story, when we got there, and when I say we, meaning this morph of a person, because we were not, we became something different, because when we go back to Slave River, how they were living before that river was completely different than what we know. So they were original. They came here, they were altered. In places like this, they were altered, they were changed. Meaning genetically they were changed, but really culturally they were changed. So when you put the context together, you say, wait a minute, this stuff started years ago, and we don't even know. They don't teach us in the schools. That's why I applaud what you're doing, because they don't teach us, they teach us what they want us to know, because the original intention of America for the African or the descendants of Africans was to make sure we were always a cheap labor force.
Portuguese arrived here in 1471. They built the castle in 1482. According to the history of this castle, there was a big tree here, and the Portuguese held their first mass. Because they held their first mass here, they built this structure, or they constructed this building, which served as a place of worship for them because they were Catholics. But it is a museum now. When the Dutch captured the castle from the Portuguese in 1637, they were Protestants. They didn't want to use this structure for church services. Built their own church on top of a full-made dungeon, and I'll take you there for you to see. Restructured the whole building, and they used the upper rooms as junior soldiers' mess, where the Dutch junior soldiers were eating and drinking, and the down floor here as auction hall or hall of trade, where they were buying and selling the Africans. Note something, on top of this slave dungeon was the Dutch church, where the Dutch built their own church, claiming to worship God. The governor in charge of the castle, including the soldiers, and his deputy governor was taking advantage of these women captured in the dungeons and abusing them sexually. But the one selected had been in the same dungeon for several days, weeks, or months without bathing, brushing her teeth. So water would be fetched from the reservoir for the one chosen by the governor to bath. And after bathing, she was given something small to cover herself. Then this is a secret passage into the governor's bedroom. So the one chosen by the governor was forced by the soldiers to climb the staircase. When she got into the governor's bedroom, she was raped by the governor. After this act, she returned into the same dungeon awaiting shipment. So anytime the ship was available to transport them away, they were screened by the ship surgeons or physicians to separate those who had become pregnant. And they gave birth to the mulattoes, the light-skinned colored children. When you visited the museum, you saw pictures of light-skinned colored children, and they gave them European names. That is why the coastal regions of Ghana has more of European names like Van Dyke, Veron, Patterson, Yankton, and etc. But these children, whilst they were growing up from the age of 4 to 5 years, they brought them here to be educated, to be taught of their own respective language. So from that moment onwards, they began to brainwash them that they are not Africans, because their color was different from the ones in the dungeons. We can see the cannonball here. And this cannonball at that time weighs about 25 kg, meaning half a bag of cement. So any of the female captives who resisted, who refused to get into the governor's bedroom to suffer rape, as punishment, was chained to the cannonball for 24 hours. And at that time, the balls used to be 8 cannonballs, and there were chains connected. So once you proved, or once you decided not to go, you'll be chained to it to serve as warning to the others. Imagine a woman already weak in the dungeon, be standing in the scorching sun or rain without food and water for 24 hours. I don't think, even if she is released, she may survive in the coming days. Now this is the room of no return, and this is the door or the gate of no return, meaning any of our ancestors who came into this room or who went out through this door never in their lives came back into this dungeon, okay, or returned home. Anytime I come with people here, especially brothers and sisters in the diaspora, it reminds me of a famous quote written by one of our ancestors on the walls in one of the dungeons, which says, until the lion begins to give an account of what happened to himself, the hunter will always be a hero. And today, all of us are here today as we reflect what our ancestors went through. As we listen, we experience what they went through.
we can now reflect and begin to to share the experiences of our ancestors to those who couldn't make it to this place.
I think we started something, gonna tell the world again. Oh, you're so beautiful, I just can't hold it in. I think we started something, I hope it never ends. I hope it never ends. Don't tell me that the good old days are over. We're two hearts running wild. On and on, we'll move a little closer. We don't have to burn out in the fire. No, we don't have to burn out in the fire. I wanna know, what are you waiting for? I wanna know, just what you're waiting for. And you should.
Yeah, she's singing praises. She's fine. And hear that, boy. Lift every voice and sing.
So let me know just what you're waiting for. I'm staring at my demons.
That's an accomplishment. My pants on just said, I ain't going no more. Let them know.
Good thing you ain't had one of them blue drinks this morning.
Man! What?
This sweat is not from it being hot. This sweat is actually from nerves. Yeah, I was so scared, but you know what? Halfway through, all I could do is just lift up God in praise and worship. I just sang worship to Him. It calmed my spirit. I'm telling you, humbling experience. So, hallelujah.
That's right. I'm Jeff Lutter. We made the Canopy Walk. It was definitely something new for me. I was in the military, did a lot of stuff in the woods and stuff like that, but I was on the ground. That was in the air. That's a whole different animal. But you know, just focus and keep walking. If you stop, that's when it starts settling in where you are. Just focus and keep walking. That's all we had to do. And it was nice. I'm sweating because of the heat, for sure.
This is so refreshing. We just did the canopy walk. It's coconut water.
Cameron. The people here are absolutely amazing. In my city or my country, where the narrative about Africa is totally different. But what I'm finding here is that it's been false all the time.
Hey, I want to invite you to join us on another Maximum Impact Travel adventure right here in West Africa. We're in Ghana, and so you have a complete well-rounded experience, and by having that experience, you're able to see the historical, the cultural, the cuisine, the fashions. There's so many different aspects of what we do with Maximum Impact Travel. As you see in the videos, and as you see the fun and all the excitement from our guests that we have currently, as well as just the different things that we do. And we want your experience here in Africa to be most memorable, something that you will be able to share for generations to come. And all you have to do is go to MaximumImpactTravel.com or follow us on Instagram at Maximum Impact Travel. You can follow me at J Cameron Official on Instagram, and of course, always on YouTube at Maximum Impact with J Cameron. So I look forward to seeing you